everybody, this is Melvin will bring you my personal match of the week for LJL Super Week. I have chosen CGA, our region's coin flippers, versus Axiz, the team of rookies who went from last place last split all the way up to tying for second currently. It is an impressive journey for them, but the question is, will CGA be able to take them down again? Last times these teams saw each other, we had CGA manage to take down Axiz using Nakian's surprise Anivia pick to put them on ice. I would call that a heads-up performance. If we see CGA falter though, then it is going to be them left with their tails between their legs running from Axiz, who are looking to claim that top spot. Keep your eyes peeled and we'll see you on the weekend.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, LJLers all around the world. Welcome to the second half of Super Week. We hope you come along. I am joined by the two eponymous members of the cast, Midnight, Melvin. How you doing? In that order.
Going well. I'm excited to see what comes on. We had a fun first day of Super Week, and I'm interested to see how this particular first match goes because both teams had showed us something interesting.
Couldn't agree more. That is why I've locked in as my match of the week beforehand. I knew there was going to be shenanigans. I didn't have the precedent of what happened to Axiz in day one, but you know, the coin flip is ready to go. I'm excited to see if Axiz are gonna be able to face off against Crest going heads or tails today.
Heads or tails, indeed. Axiz off of middling form. We saw them maybe experiment with some things yesterday. We don't want to be too vicious about their losses, but they are 0-2 in squeeze time right now. They want to get to the key 8 wins for playoffs, and they're not there yet. And an Axiz side that does look so good, suddenly struggling.
Does lead me to think that hopefully, big hopium coming in, moving away from Sengoku, who decided to betray me and start winning as soon as I get off the bandwagon. We'll see if they can continue to upset me today, because I believe we have them for Game 3 and onwards after that. But what I was going to say is for Axiz, they must have come into yesterday thinking it was an experiment. Like, they're playing the Ziggs bot, they haven't done it yet. This is the time to test it against Sengoku, one of the bottom place teams. And Sengoku just happened to be playing quite well and have an answer to Ziggs.
Did look indeed organized. Midnight, we're going to come to you with CGA, a team that is, unless you really, really want to go, that's a man who wants to make a point.
All right, let me get my coin because this is how I think CGA is going to decide if they win or lose. Like CGA, and to admittedly, I do kind of tie this Axiz as well. I don't know what's going on with these teams, but when I think of either of these teams, I think of a lack of consistency. I can't look at either of these teams, see who they're versing, and feel confident saying they'll win or lose that matchup. Because I'll look at games like, oh, they should beat Burning Core, they should beat this, and then you look at the game, it's like, it shouldn't be this close. It has no right to be this close. But it is half the time, and I don't know what's going on. And now you're asking me to look at the two coin flip teams and say who's coming out on top, mate. I have a better chance going for the lottery than I would guess in this.
All right. In that case, I will flip these two as we come on to broadcast. We'll know whether it'll be a close game with 2 heads, 2 tails, and we'll have a repeat of Nymere's breakdown yesterday. And if one is heads, one is tails, we know one team's going to win. CJA off of middling form, 1-1, treading water. If they keep it up, it will get them into playoffs with a squeak and a dance just in at the end. Anything else you want to add on our resident flippers, Melvin?
Well, as you just alluded to there, 8 is the magic number right now, with Sengoku really chasing down the pack of the competition going, hey, guys, we are still here, and we're going to light a fire under you. And right now, Crest, if they can just flip, they'll be doing okay.
All right, we look to Sengoku to maybe upset some dreams, but otherwise, let's have a look at CGA and Axiz as we go over to pick and ban for game number 1.
Let's dive into it and see what's going to happen. Where is the coin flip coming out from this time, Melvin? And so far, I think the thing that excites me the most, and it's the dumbest thing, Ziggs ban against Honey, because I don't want to see Honey on Ziggs. He's good at the champion, but just give Honey a marksman, please.
do have the Thresh open for Axiz. We'll have to see if they validate CGA as a scary enough opponent that they just go for that one. Take a look at how it plays out right now. We do have the hover insta-lock Zins out for the CGA side, because Sin had a pretty good game on it yesterday.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have been saying that Xin Zhao's been really rising up. It's really strong as a jungler. Cassin, we know, can definitely step up, and I'm really excited to see that as give me my Thresh Warden, baby. I've gotten back into the hype train of whenever I see Thresh getting super excited. And for all people, for Nimoy to grab a Thresh, I think would be brilliant, because that opens up Honey to play something static, like maybe an Aphelios or something along those lines.
Does leave a lot of options up, and it will be paired with the LeBlanc for Megumin here. That is a very early lock-in, taking it away from Nahyun. Curious to see what they're going to opt for now, if they are going to take something in the first rotation or be left waiting. We do know that in the last matchup these teams had, Nahyun pulled out the surprise Anivia out of nowhere and absolutely ruined Hoglet on that Olaf. So, with that banned, I'm curious to see if they've had anything else that they've been practicing in the off 2 weeks we had coming up to this Super Week.
Yeah,
Like that.
And like that, that'll definitely work. And I'm very curious what they're going to pair this Lulu up with. If Milan locks in a Nezreal, I'm going to cry the world's biggest ocean. Like, because normally when you see a Lulu, you need it either paired with an Olaf, which is banned, or a hyper carry. Because the next time I see a Lulu Ezreal, oh, it's Lulu solo lane.
No. Why? Okay, alright. So the reason that this is so egregious is you don't want to lock in either your mid lane or your support realistically here, because that way you give away that the Lulu is not going bot lane. And it just lets Axiz know, alright, well, they're putting Leona bot lane, so they have to go in. Therefore, we could go Aphelios with Thresh and just fight them.
I just had a horrifying mental image. What if, because we know a good counter to LeBlanc is a Morgana. What if this is Nap's Lulu, they look at a Morgana for Nahyun, and they grab something like a Kog'Maw for Milan and play a full Protect the Kog'Maw comp? Like, just to give yourself 30 seconds to imagine how disgusting that is when a LeBlanc isn't going to be able to do one-shot the Kog'Maw, and Aphelios isn't going to be able to do it. What do you do?
At that point, you have to look for some disruption tools. We may, if that is the route that prevails, since Axiz are on that red side of the map, they do always have the option to pivot at the very end there. Could potentially see something like the Gragas to throw up. I don't doubt that Nahyun would take this Lulu into LeBlanc. It's quite an old counter pick, though. It's not something that we've seen picked up for a while. I mean, to be fair, though, Nahyun is also an old school player in that sense. So, leaving the flexibility for that one, we'll have to see, but it is a Lee Sin picked up, presumably for Hoglet. I believe that you didn't have the most positive opinions on Hoglet's Lee Sin.
Look, there were a few plays in the last game where he had that Lee Sin that were questionable. And I mean, like, sus as hell, this guy, are we 9xing this guy level of questionable? So, to see him on it again, I get really worried. I'm sure Hoglet's competent on the champion, but every time I've seen Hoglet on a Lee Sin, it just brings back bad memories. So hopefully it does well. As on the other side, CGA locking the Jhin really don't like that. You have a Lulu. Why don't you grab yourself something that benefits from the attack speed steroid she provides, even if she's a mid laner?
Has to be some kind of super carry in the mid or top lane here, and I would not call Kennen that. I would definitely not call Mundo that. All right, CGA, you are taking us for a ride today. I am really upset looking at this, but we will find out what Axiz decide to finish off their draft with right now. They do have the option to send that Lee Sin into the top lane, but not really much point to it here, in my opinion. I'm curious to see what they end up saying Ino can take into this one. They had a bit of a rough time on the Gangplank yesterday, but should be okay just getting to exist and scale against Mundo, considering that based on how this draft has played out, CGA don't really want to pay any attention up there.
Yeah, and I actually don't mind the Gangplank. Yes, Ino didn't look brilliant on the champion. And Gangplank is a mechanically intensive champion. You need to know what you're doing. You can't sort of improvise your way around the barrels. But when you look at the lane, you don't ever really want to lock in something that, you know, provides crowd control. Normally the answer here is a set half the time, right? But then you look at Mundo, Set's entire combo is relied on pulling them in and then punching them in the face, and you're just giving Mundo free health every time you pull them in. So I've got high hopes for Inno's Gangplank. I'm just really hoping it does a little bit better than what it did yesterday. But obviously been practicing it, otherwise why would you lock it in, right?
You would have to assume, and I think this is potentially another one of those cases where they're saying, all right, let's not test everything all at once. Let's not go for the Ziggs bot lane and the gameplay. They're saying, all right, one at a time. We're going to do a little bit of mini trials in the last few games we have, and as long as we can keep ahead of that looming Sengoku in the back of the standings, then they're fine. Then they've locked playoffs. It's better than they did last split. And while this team was doing pretty damn well in the weeks 3 to 4 kind of region, they're going to be okay as long as they make playoffs, right? This is a team that we've seen do very well on this set kind of style. If Nemo has that Thresh, they're insane. I expect them to be absolutely insane in this game. And when you do have the Leona on the opposition for your lane, you do have the outplay potential with that Flay. Has not been nerfed yet because this is patch 11.14, so they are currently doing okay for that one.
And even if the Thresh does get that little bit of a nerf, I don't think it's the end of the world. Yes, I literally just said yesterday I'm becoming a Thresh one trick again, so I may be a bit biased in that one. But also, just the proactivity of Nimoy on the Thresh makes me really hopeful, right? We know he's a competent playmaker. We know he's in a good mood. He's going to go for those kind of plays. And Thresh is the perfect champion to run that sort of game on your opponent. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'm hopeful, right? I really think this is actually a decent draft coming in from Axiz. And I half say that because I like the draft. I half say that because I don't know what Crest is doing with a Lulu, Jin, coming in. It's a little bit of a mess, I'll be honest.
Crest yesterday had a weird day. I have got the blessing / curse of covering all 4 Crest games over Super Week. Had both of them yesterday. We have both of them this morning. And I'm sure by the end of it, I will not be bashing my head into a wall. But to give everybody the rundown, who wasn't up to date yesterday, Crest decided to play a super late game scaling comp, Karthus jungle on top lane. They got to late game against a team that they horrifically outscaled, chose not to take any fights, ended up getting picked once, just got snowballed on from there into Elder and Baron sieging them, lost the game, decided, all right, next game, we're going to try and win through lane. Went for winning lanes, lost all their lanes, still won late game. This is so Crest it hurts. This team cannot physically play the early game. They tried to play into it, couldn't, and now they've kind of gone for a weird middle ground where they got Pick in the bot side, a jungler who gets outscaled, but they got a Lulu, so it compensates. And then there's just a Mundo. So, you know what? I don't want Crest to win this game based on the draft, but knowing Crest, that probably means they're in the best spot they've ever been in.
Yeah, the draft has been a little bit all over the joint. I'm interested. I feel like with the likes of the Lulu Zinzao that you've locked in, I feel like you have to do something in that 2v2 mid, right? Like, otherwise, yes, Lulu as an answer to the LeBlanc technically works, but it technically works in the same way that I could technically, I don't know, create a 5-course meal for myself. Sure, I could. I'd rather not. I'd rather go out and get a 5-course meal. So I'm interested to see if this is just Nakium being put on, oh, we'll just throw on utility and just sort of help the rest of the team, but we haven't got great scaling because we've got a Jhin instead of a Jinx or a Tristana or a Twitch, but don't worry, it'll be fine. Like, I don't know. I just think that Lulu doesn't belong in this composition.
And I think if you're looking at just for the isolated counter matchup, part of the reason for that is going to be down to the fact that Megumin jumps in, you get polymorphed, then you get knocked up, and at that point, Kassin should already have been able to close the gap and have bursted you out, or at least marked you so he could dash you straight after. That's kind of like the logic behind it. And the reason I say that kind of hesitantly is because if you take a QSS later on, that's mitigated exponentially. As we see, Honey has already got that cleanse in lane for the obvious reasons of you're against a Jhin Leona, so makes perfect sense down there, and does mean that they're going to be pretty hard to pick off when they have a Thresh paired with them.
Exactly, and this is a Thresh that, as me and Nymera were talking about yesterday, Threshes with Guardian max W to make sure that it is basically at any point when there's a fight, Guardian procs. Now, the Thresh line is actually shielding. Yes, it means Nimoy's proactivity. It means we're not going to see, the roaming Thresh. But against Jin Leona, you're not allowed to play roaming Thresh, because if you do that, you play roaming Thresh with an 80 carry who's got 0-7 because he keeps dying in lane. So I really do like to see the smart adjustments coming through from supports, and we're seeing that in the bottom lane already with Honey and Nimoy zoning out Milan and Alchemy from just the wave blatantly.
And I have to say, one thing I noticed when they were showing the runes right there is actually on the Thresh, they have decided to go for the Time Warp Tonic and the Biscuits paired with it. That means that they are able to bait out specific plays when you do go for the full investment, and suddenly you just get a mini burst of HP you weren't expecting. Can pivot a trade, but also using those potions, using the biscuits, will give them enough speed to move away to position for those good lanterns. Is something that we will have to take a look at and see how they end up using those in the lane phase, or if they end up just spamming them because Leona's constantly engaging, especially when you have both junglers pathing down to bot side, clearing all of their top side jungles. Kassin on these Zinzar is a bit quicker, which is why they managed to pick up the Raptors as well. And now I'm curious to see if Hoglet just clears these Grump into Wolves and then paths back into mid or to top side, or if we will see both junglers match down here, as there is match division in the jungle, so both of the mid laners should be prepared. Oh, good hook.
Ooh, that was a lovely hook, but that is just harassment. That puts Alchemy in a position where Alchemy wants to be the one to start that fight. Obviously, it's a Leona. And if you can keep the Leona low, if you can make the Leona basically worry, if I engage, I die, it nullifies the entire threat of the pick, because you can't engage if you're going to die in the start of a fight. No one's that dumb. As we're seeing Hoglet visiting the mid lane, Nilmoy, though, smells it a mile away. But the more important thing, I think, is Hoglet is going to double scuttle Kassin, because Megamin and Inno are both roaming up to it. I don't think Kassin's allowed to fight this. He's trying to, and immediately flashes to safety as a hook onto Milan somehow does connect. The Lantern followed through as well. That is goodbye, Milan. Playing the early game aggressive marksman. No, not going to work out there as the fight continues on the top half of the map. They're finally people getting low, but Nap is massive. Doesn't give a damn as Noah is hunting down Hoglet. Hoglet is slow. That Lulu does have some nice damage stats and a blue buff she's hungry for, but does she have the cooldowns to hunt them down? Hoglet fleeing for the hills, does have the shield. Can they try and turn it around? Misses the Q, but gets the auto attack, and Nimoy says, thank you very much.
Good juke right there from Hoglet to try and survive, but will not be able to escape the ever-present Lulu, who does catch them and equalize the scoreboard, most importantly. But that first blood did go over to Honey, who, as you can see, managed to pick up the boots and finish the Noon Quiver. Absolutely disgusting. It is going to give them so much lane control right here, as Alchemy actually overextending.
Yeah, and now Megamin is in a lot of trouble right now. Does get CC'd up by the Leona. There is no cleanse in this middle lane, and makes it look easy.
Worst part is those minions are going to push in, so not only is Megamin going to die, but they're going to lose all those minions. Let's take a look at how it happened down here, because when you have the purple Gravitum gun, normally you set up for the hook, but right here it was the reverse of Nemo getting the initial hook, and then going into that one, instant burst damage down. Yeah, this top side fight is a bit of a shenanigans, where both of the jungler and the top lane get massively chunked out. Megamin not able to keep up. Nathan does actually get a good flash right there to not get chained up, which allows them to get this return kill. And then, as we know, with the foreknowledge after the fact, they return back mid, and with the help of Alchemy, get a kill onto Megamin, putting themselves in a pretty promising spot, actually.
It's not a lot of gold, but it's more so the fact that Axiz can't really be happy with what happened. Yes, they were able to get some good plays coming out, and even with the kill against Milan, you still lost your mid lane there. It wasn't you get this and it's for free. It was made a trade, and now CGA is actually sitting a kill up on the board here. Even if that kill is on Alchemy, could be worse.
Gold is effectively equalized at this point. If anything, the bigger question is who is the gold on? And I would say the fact that Inno was able to get the sheen on that first back, they are not going to be too hurt. Does have the ultimate available right now, so plays can be enabled across the map. And you see Honey, I really like when Aphelios players do this. They're just sitting on a little bit of ammo for the purple gun. That means that they can always look for an ultimate into route if the play is available. They will end up swapping it out here because they are still level 5. It's not too relevant because it gives them, as you see right there with that brilliant ammo management, they have the red and the white gun, the two best for skirmishing in short range. And guess what Alchemy wants to do as this Leona? Skirmish in short range. And if they do so,
Oh, yeah.
they will likely die.
Yeah, and it now means that Milan, again, I really dislike the Jhin in this composition. You're playing an early game champion that needs to do well into an Aphelios who has got no issues doing skirmishing with you when they've got the right gun combination. It just always feels a little bit out of place. And now, well, we'll see if that punishment on the bottom side matters, as Hoglet might actually get their red buff. So he sees it's missing. I think he knows. Yeah, he knows what's up now, and the reinforcements coming through him. It isn't going to be from Axiz, though, and the Axiz jungler is just forced to watch it as, wait, what? Alchemy, what are you doing? Alchemy, no! You can't! What?
Oh, it's the Hylissang special, trying to hold the minion wave, but now
Oh.
Inno's in danger.
Yeah, but gets the flash out, will be able to get out in one piece, maybe, cannot kick, Helmet can't do anything, he's only level 5, tries to fight off, but the good Doctor heals too damn much. Mega Man coming in over the wall, finds the Dr. Mundo, and very quickly realizes, well, there is nothing I can do here.
I would not have been surprised if Honey and Nemo had actually fished for another kill right there if Milan stepped too far up. Oh, I like this.
What?
Just trying to stagger the recalls to keep them in lane with their support coming back. I mean, there isn't much happening right now if you take a look, because they do have... Oh, that was a good W. They do have Kassin taking the Rift Herald, and that is why they're just trying to stop the bases, because it means that now Nemo and Honey cannot go join that, so this is all but guaranteed if they don't lose the Smite fight, which I doubt Hoglet is going to kill themselves for this Smite. Is going to give this team some early tempo that they can then use to, hopefully for them, try and snowball this bot lane back again, because frankly, you don't really want the gold injection on the Lulu, you don't want it on the Dr. Mundo, you need to get this Jhin back in the game, because look at the enemy team, there's no tanks, it's all squishies. With the exception of really Lee Sin later on, nobody's going to be stacking armor, so Milan won't get outscaled like Jins typically do when they're against things like the Mundo, but even then, they do need to at least be in a good position to get to that point.
Yeah, and I really do hope we see Kassin roaming to the bottom half of the map. I really hope that is the signal that says, hey, we're making that play on bot side as you just described. Because if they drop that Herald anywhere else, I just think it's a really poor allocation of resources as Mega Man looking for something onto Nahum, but it's just harassment. We're seeing the shielding, the polymorph. Mega Man isn't really allowed to do anything in this lane. Just sort of has to catch the wave, keep farming, and say, all right, I'll trade with you when I don't have less than half my health.
Pathing into the bot side. Going for what we hope. I'm just being hesitant with my words because I'm afraid that CGA are going to do something unexpected, as they are wont to do.
You're getting worried that they're
I'm morally
to the
preparing myself for the worst. Like, I can see that there's a Zinzao with the Rift Herald about to go into this overextending bot lane. And I don't know what it is, but something about CGA just makes me think that Kassin's going to base here, and then nothing's going to change. As Kassin bases, and nothing changes.
But there was a reason for that base. If you did get to look at the minimap, Nimoy and Honey roamed to the Tribush and warded it up. And it was quite an obvious movement. So Milan and Alchemy said, look, there's no point coming down here. Like, they're going to see you a mile away. And Leona's good engaged, but if that engage isn't perfect, that's a flash from Nimoy, a lantern behind him, and a Honey that gets out with no issues.
You have Kassin walking to this top side. Oh boy, the Mundo plus Zinzao skirmish as Megumin getting the better end of this matchup, I must say. Even though we do have the first item Mercury Treads for Lulu. Kassin currently looking for the dive. Everybody is converging right now.
Yeah, but I worry Kassin is in the wrong position here. If Hoglet is willing to play aggressive, then they could simply collapse on them, as Nimoy was very confident that that hook was going to connect here. That the skirmish topside continues. Kassin, I think Kassin is sold on dropping Herald topside for Nap, and I'm really not. I really think it's a bad idea, but Kassin clearly decides otherwise, drops a Herald. That will be a lot of gold donated over to Nap. Kassin and I think Nahum is going to get on the gold income as well.
It's only 100 gold each, though. That's the issue. Like, they really did not get a big gold swing off of that. I mean, it's decent money, but it's definitely nothing, because as you look at the top of the scoreboard, Axiz are still ahead in gold. Like, it wasn't even enough to just throw the minor lead out of the window. And the only reason that I can imagine they do this is because they want to set up for either a lane swap or they just want to try and pressure this first tower in the top lane. But frankly, I'm kind of lost for words to do with it, I must say. It's definitely not something you would expect to happen as we look at where all the gold is. That is, in fact, a near on 2k gold lead for Honey on this Aphelios. Most gold in the game. Absolute insanity right here, as they've already got the Immortal Shield Bow and Boots. I don't know if you can gank this lane anymore. You need to get some flank wards down so Nap can potentially TP in, because otherwise, I don't know if you've got enough lockup in the world to hold him still.
The answer is simple. No, CGA doesn't. And especially not when Nahun is getting caught out like that. The insta-TP coming through here from Mega Man means that the second dragon of the game will be claimed by Axiz. And I'm starting to get a little bit worried for CGA. Their composition needed to do well in the 2v2 in the middle, mid jungle. It hasn't. Their top laner hasn't been able to do much against, the passive Gangplank. Sure, he's going to get the first turret, but that was more from the, Rift Herald being dropped on the top half of the map than anything Nap was actively doing. And in the bottom lane, your early game Jhin is 30 CS down against Honey, who already has a Mythic. And again, I want to reiterate, it's Honey who has the Mythic.
Yeah, our notorious hyper carry player is going to be a force to be reckoned with this game. And I will say that it looks like Inno wanted that tower to die so they could attempt to either freeze or just be in a safer position, allowing Hoglet to pay to the other side of the map, because they had the ultimate available, right? They could have used the Cannon Barrage to slow down and kill the minions before they get to the tower. Don't see Gangplanks do this enough to protect themselves, but look at the angle Kassin has to take now to try and gank this top lane. The only issue is with that tower going down, it means that it's a lot more difficult for them to rotate to mid lane to help if Megumin ever needs to take a weird recall. So it is going to be a lurk, actually. They really want to kill this Gangplank, attempt to put him in the ground, and I don't know how successful it's going to be with the Cannon Barrage still available.
I feel like Inno's personally offended CGA at this point. This is unnecessarily cruel, as they will simply be able to execute him under his own damn turret. The protection of Nahun's Lulu is more than enough to make sure that the diving trio get out alive, and Axiz will finally punish something for rotating 4 members to mid, but I feel like it's a step way too late coming through here. It's clear that CGA came in with a battle plan to bully Inno out of the game, and yes, while it's worked, I worry has Honey gotten far enough ahead to stop, the Dr. Mundo from pointing his cleaver at Honey and saying, I'm gonna mal-murder you.
At this current moment in time, Honey is still only at that first item point. Once they get to about 3, then Nap effectively becomes paper. But they have actually opted for the first item, Anathema's Chains, and is going to presumably be using that on Honey to try and mitigate some of the damage. I like that box just to get the disengage. You don't want to fight this. You've just taken that mid tower. You are sat on a lot of gold. Now the question is, can they actually clear this mid wave? Because they don't have the Cannon Barrage. And it looks like CGA do have the inside track, and they're not going to let Axiz just walk on in here.
And that's really good positioning from CGA. Axiz now, well, they don't want to fight. They need to get back to position. Nap is being an absolute menace, holding them up there. Hoglet.
Okay.
I think everyone in the world just held their breath, because whenever you see a Lee Sin throw themselves at 4 or 5 people, you quickly check if that's flashed, and kick is available.
His mind was most certainly telling him no, and fortunately he decided to go with that better instinct, as on the other side of the map, Axiz did have Inno secure that bot lane tower. Isn't going to be much gold, but it is standing gold on the map that they might as well collect. We do actually have the Triforce on this Gangplank. I have typically only seen the Divine Sunder in recent times, but there is still no issue with this. The ability of the Mythic passive gives you some pretty good stats for Gangplank after that little change a while ago. So it does give a little hodgepodge of movement speed and all these kind of things. A bit of ability haste is something that Gangplank enjoys every stat it gives. Frankly, he's always been a Triforce fan. And as we do continue into this game, that will give them a bit more prevalence in being more mobile in the fights instead of dealing with Nap in the side lane.
Yeah, but I feel like the bigger problem for CGA isn't, who's going to stop Nap? It's how are we stopping Honey? 2k gold we just saw on the stats just then on Honey's back pocket. The Collector not long till Honey picks that objective up, and I'm just getting more and more worried. Because again, we know Honey is a proficient player. I'm gonna keep saying it until CGA do something about it, because they've allowed a hypercarry player to get two items basically for free, and they don't have a good answer for it.
They have a Thresh, they have a Cleanse. I don't think they've had to use Flash this game, thinking about it. No aggressive plays have been made towards Axiz bottom lane. They have just been allowed to go free reign on Milan and Alchemy, who, I mean, they didn't lose a lot of resources, but that's still not exactly what you want, as this is a Mountain Soul today, and we do have Axiz with 2 dragons to start off. Securing this would be really big because it mitigates a lot of what Jhin is trying to do in these fights, not able to put out that constant DPS. So what CGA are going for here is they're putting up the pressure mid to try and hold him still.
Nice catch on to Cassin there. Cassin forced to drop the Crescent Guard immediately. Hoglet going for a flank there, but Hoglet's on his own. Flash kick throws him in, but Cassin once again getting out alive. The Jhin Curtain Call buying a lot of space coming through here as the Chakrams are available for Honey. If Honey can get into the fight like now, it will be brilliant for the side of Axiz, but they're just not able to lock anyone down. A lot of critical ultimates have been burnt, but Nap still has his in his back pocket, waiting to see what will come from it. Dragon has been started up, and neither of these teams is willing to give a damn inch, with even Milan throwing himself into the front line of the fight. Honey trying to stack up. The Chakrams just quickly pull Dragon's low. Dragon secured by Hoglet. Well done, mate. You will pay with your life, but you secured Dragon number 3 for your team. And Axiz looks like they might even get out with only 1 casualty of Hoglet. That is a worthwhile in all, chat, if this is the case. And yes, CGA, they're posturing, they're annoyed, but there's nothing they can do about it.
And that is the first smite of the weekend that Kassin has lost. They won 2 pivotal smite fights yesterday, including one that secured them the soul. This time, not able to get it. Hoglet gets it done and is going to put them at that soul point. And the best part for Axiz is, even if that fight had gone as bad as possible and they get aced, CGA gets a gold influx, they get mid tower, but the Baron is not up for a minute. That is how quickly Axiz have been accelerating on these dragons this game. And let's take a look at what was happening. This was just Axiz trying to keep CGA mid so they couldn't get a better position on the dragon. And now this is just both junglers saying, no you, as they jump in and the lantern helps them escape. But the issue is, Kassin is just so unbelievably tanky. And there's a little bit of a split up right here where Honey goes the long way around. And it's realistically going to just lead to a little bit of a skirmish where both teams are just throwing poke at each other, but neither team can actually do anything decisive because they just burned all their big cooldowns in that previous fight. And watch Hoglet right here. They do manage to get the Sonic Wave into the Resonating Strike plus Smite. That is the only reason they were able to secure it. They time it beautifully. And I was still worried even when they landed the Q into Q, because yesterday the exact same thing happened, and Kassin timed their smite as the second Lee Sin Q activated, so they actually outsmited them despite Lee Sin getting the setup. So keep your eye on Kassin around these fights, because they're going to need their smiting hand ready when it comes to that 4 minutes time for that Mountain Soul.
Yeah, but we might get some more. There's Nemo he's getting engaged on, but this is just everything for the Thresh. And actually, they didn't even secure it. Hoglet gets the kick through. Cassin is thrown out of whack, trying to hold the front line there with the Lulu ultimate to buy a lot of space. As Alchemy finds Megamin on the sideline. This LeBlanc is Trixie flashing out to safety as the fight continues there. Cassin throws himself into the front line, but gets caught out. Nap is now getting torn apart. What a messy fight from both of these teams. That Nap finally not getting access, not going down, because, well, why would you as a Dr. Mundo? You don't give a damn about the damage output when you're getting that healing coming through. And now the fight looks like to be won by CGA.
This is the most relatively tanky the Mundo is going to be before Honey can start to build into more of those items like the Lord Dominic's. And this was just a fight that didn't need to happen. It was solely because Nemo is slightly out of position. They get jumped on by everything. They actually escape initially, which is the most astounding part. And they get the final hook, but that does end up leading to Milan finishing them off. And Milan is just one of the most consistent utility players in the league for their role, where they just play things like this Jhin, like the Varus, and consistently lay down the covering fire for the team. as they do get jumped on, and it basically baits Inno in right there, very greedy, leading to just the other three not be able to handle the Mundo because, spoiler, it's a Lee Sin and a Blanc, and those two are not notorious for tank killing, especially with the full pen build that we've got Megumin going for at the moment.
Yeah, and Honey, even in all the damage Honey can do, there is one significant problem. Despite the 4,500 damage, healing reduction has only been purchased by one person on the side of Axiz, and that was Inno, who wasn't even involved in the Dr. Mundo fight. So suddenly, oh, how do we deal with Mundo? Oh, you get percentage health damage, you get healing cut, you cut him down that way. If you haven't purchased the right itemization to deal with the good doctor kills you. And, well, we saw in that case, he's bought so much time for the rest of his team to clean up the fight, comes back in and says, all right, where's my next mate? Where's my next patient?
And it does mean that Honey needs to be very cautious about making sure the team doesn't take fights when they don't have the right guns to handle the Mundo. Because if you have the Gravitum, the purple one, you could slow the Mundo constantly, they never get on top of you, and you could just kite out a fight infinitely. But playing around Aphelios is not just something that the player needs to do, the whole team needs to be prepared for it. Because right now, you see that they've got the green and the white gun. This means they can position quite far away and play really, really well in choke points, because it means you can't walk up, all those turrets will start running you down. He can shoot you from infinite away, not infinite anymore, that was more so of hyperbole, from quite far away. It used to be infinite, which was when Aphelios was at his full 200-year state, and then realistically, it just doesn't let you actually walk in, which is why it's so important right here for Axiz to have priority on the dragon. Because with the guns he has right now, he needs to be hitting you first and trying to get a big ultimate with that Infernum. As, oh, you can see the setup, but it's only the 3v right now. Everybody's collapsing, Megumin is TPing in now.
Yeah, this is the fight. CGA brute force their way to the dragon, but Hoglet, he's done it once. He could do it again. Alchemy on the zoning duty will get the CC up. Is it going to be Hoglet? Oh, God, that's a horrible time for a sneeze. As Hoglet is taken down low, Nimue is holding the front line. The dragon is still side of Megumin, jumping into the back line there. Milan forced immediately get the wild growth to keep the Jin alive. The fight slowing down for a little bit here. Dragon is still aggroed, however, as CGA continue their posturing forwards there, but they can't find Hoglet. They know Hoglet's back on. Hoglet not able to get the steal. Unfortunately, Polymorph comes through denying that, and now Axiz forced to flee. Megumin going into the backline, but not able to land the chain. Can't do anything. But CGA, oh no! CGA look lost! They don't know where they're going. Megumin from behind, Honey in the front. They don't know where they're going. They don't know who they are. All they know is that they're going to fight somehow, but I'm not sure they have the damage output to do it. They finally get access to Honey via Alchemy, but Alchemy's going to go down. So is going to be the jungler. Cassin didn't even get a chance to get out in one piece. Honey prowling for the final thing there. Inno slices down the Leona. And what a messy fight from both these teams. And I just still don't know how I just won that.
I think they could go Baron right here. As soon as Honey uses their next Q on that blue gun, they will have the white one, which is just infinite damage to objectives right here. As you watch right now, Hoglet is on the way back. Nahyun's TP'd mid to try and push out the way, but you have no way to approach this. Nap doesn't have their TP, and the Baron is just going to burn.
Yeah, shred this one down. The spoils of war here for Axiz will claim this one.
W. Oh.
don't do that to me. Don't do that to me, Melvin. I've seen enough Baron steals in my life, and oh god. Oh, okay. So what happens in this? This is such a drawn out fight, and I feel like CGA just lost control at the end of it when that flank came in from Megumin. What happened at first? So Hoglet just gets nuked.
And the issue was, CGA had the right priority on the river, but they didn't just focus on killing the dragon. They tried to take a war on two fronts right here that did not go well for them, because they do manage to secure the dragon and get Hoglet, but then they keep elongating the fight, which is only realistically good for the Mundo. Everybody else is kind of saying, alright guys, I've used all of my fuel. We saw right there, Milan, no Gale Force available, he can't reposition, as Megumin is just such a nuisance on the backline. Just keeping people busy means that Nahyun isn't able to protect that Mundo who gets popped by the massive Infernum Moonlight Vigil. And just watch, Megumin is buying so much pressure for the team. They do end up falling here, but Honey goes absolutely off on one, swapping to the perfect guns immediately after getting the speed boost, chasing down Alchemy. There is no escape from this, as they do get the Baron, and they have pretty much everything they need to try and breaking open the base here, which is what your objective should be for Axiz. You need to open up some avenues where you can try and have pressure in the top side. I love this, because if you get this tower, it means when the dragon spawns next, you'll have default prior in the top side, and will put CGA in a losing position where they need to make a decision that they realistically have no good answer to.
Yeah, and I feel like at that point, if you're CGA, as you said, there's no good answer to it. I feel like your answer isn't, oh, let's try and match the pressure that Axiz is doing. Do it, Hoglet. Come on. Come on, do it.
Or a bad influence, my friend.
I am definitely a bad influence. I am the person that tells you to go for level 1 engages on Leona because it's funny. Because no one expects the level 1 Leona, and that's why it works. I'm the worst kind of solo queue teammate you can possibly get, because I will basically int your game if I think of a cool idea. It's a problem. As Axiz will posture, taking down the tier 2s, and even the Nexus turrets maybe aren't long for this world, courtesy of the Baron buff.
And we're starting to see the good doctor not able to actually repel this push on their own, needing friends. But the thing is, Inno, pushing on the other side of the map, they actually got a base here, most curiously. I'm not sure why they decided to stop there, because you already saw that there was so many resources, but they had plenty of time. They still have the Baron up for another 30 seconds. They could have at least finished off that tower. That's the most bizarre part to me. Otherwise, I would have completely agreed. That's a good reset window, because everybody's on the map. They could get mid-prior again and position around. Just odd that they didn't stick around for the extra 5 seconds to get a 600 gold influx.
I think it was more recall, get your items, come back, look at all the control wards that are being brought to the table as well. I don't mind the reset, because now you've reset with plenty of time to get vision down, to re-push the waves out, and you're in just a good position as you were if you chose to reset, 5-6 seconds later. So I'm a fan of it personally. Wait, Inno's built a Cerebrillious Grudge. That's the most obnoxious item I think I've ever seen in a Gangplank, courtesy of like the Leandri's Torment build a couple years back. That's great.
I find it odd because he already slows with both the barrels and the ultimate, as right now CGH is looking for a death engage.
Oh no! Nimoy flashes into the Solar Flare! That's a disaster! And Honey has actually burnt the Moonlight Vigil. CGA actually can take this dragon. I don't think Axiz are allowed to fight.
It's free. They can't go into it anymore. And that was just a real big split up right there. Axiz faltering when they really just had no right to. And, I mean, it isn't going to lose them the game right here, but they could have won the game by securing that. If you secure this dragon, there's no Baron up on the other side. If the fight goes poorly, I don't think the squad of CGA is actually primed to try and win the game off of it, especially because you'd already done your due diligence and killed that mid-wave, so realistically, that was just a weird lack of synergy, the team not having the right communication. That's something we don't want to see from Axiz, who was so promising, holding that top 2 spot in the league for most of the weeks of the split, in fairness to them, which is concerning when they had their first O2 week yesterday since the very first week, when they had that disgusting strength of schedule of the teams we were expecting to win of V3 and Rascal Jester, who just put them in the ground. Now, we do have Axiz trying to fight back to get up in those top spots and avoid the horror that is Sengoku's resurgence in this minor lull state we had before the Baron.
Yeah. And it should be really alarming for Axiz, because most fights that Axiz have postured for, they've lost, right? Like, it's only on the back of, the cheeky shenanigans we saw from Megumin at the end of the last fight, where things actually started to turn their way. So it's really alarming for me, Melvin, that we see this state where CGA is allowed to set up the waves, is allowed to walk up to the Baron, is allowed to do what they're doing. Because in an ideal world, Axiz has stopped them 5 minutes ago, but it hasn't happened.
Look at Honey's inventory. This shouldn't be losable. You have a 4-item Aphelios who is effectively dealing true damage, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Aphelios has now started going for the... Basically, when he maxes abilities, yeah, everything about this champion is stupid. Sorry for anybody that doesn't regularly play or see Aphelios. But basically, when he levels an ability, he actually just gains different stats. Either raw attack damage, attack speed, or lethality, effectively. And right now, Aphelios has actually been going for the lethality second after the AD, pairing it with Collector and the Lord Dominic's Regards, and effectively doing true damage to most people in the game, which is already disgusting because he's a crit carry who can, as you can now see, go Infinity Edge, meaning every auto he does to people like Nathan and Milan are just going to half bar them, give or take, as we get into another setup for one of these fights, because the Baron is up and CGA are looking for it again.
They're doing it again, but not able to find the target here. And now they've actually found out Hoglet, but not able to land the Solar Flare. The Wild Grove coming through, the Hoglet is just going to go down. No amount of health is going to save you there. Once again, Axiz, they're just getting picked apart here. They're not setting up properly. They're not willing to have Nimoy in the right position to throw out the lantern. And now they're forced to do cheeky shenanigans like this, where Megamin is going in for a flank on a Milan, almost able to get the one shot, but now might be in trouble. Forced to flee, but now Baron started up. Axes are posturing. I'm not so sure this is the play though. They They basically don't have an AD carry as Alchemy finds out Megamin, and yeah, they're backing away. They're looking for the fight, and well, they'll find Inno as Nimoy buys a lot of time. But once again, Honey is not touched in this fight. That's the more important thing. Is we're seeing Megamin will clean up Milan, abandoned by the rest of the team. There's Honey now on the front line with the Infernum. Says, all right, let's do this, boys. I'll take you myself. Oh, wait, no, get off me, please. Get off me. No, Honey, no, Honey, you can't do that. Honey, you're not allowed to do that. That's disgusting.
Oh, thank God, finally! Seeing Honey get to play the game. I was waiting this entire time for his team to enable him, and he just throws down the gauntlet and says, fine, I'll do it myself. Absolutely obliterates CGA, effectively single-handedly, using the rest of his teammates as just meat shields, is now going to walk down the base and try and end the game. Milan up in 5 seconds. Nathan, the only other person up. They can at least look for turrets. I don't know if they'll be able to end the game here, but they are going to try.
They're going to look for it. Hoglet kicked Nathan in, and deletion coming through as Honey is just wailing away. Both Nexus stars on Alchemy and Milan can't do a damn thing. They couldn't stop him in lane. They sure as hell can't stop him at the end of the game, as Axiz will take down CGA in 33 minutes.
Praise the moon. Honey right there. Just taking the game away in an instant. It looked like it was just CGA coming back in the game. They were in a great spot, frankly. They were postured around the Baron. If they didn't start it and just positioned in a way that they could have let Milan poke a bit with the curtain call, then I feel like they basically just had a do-or-die scenario for Axiz right there. But they just said, hey, let's all run at Aphelios exactly where Aphelios wants to be, in the middle of everything, and Honey just takes them to town.
Yeah, it was, I'm trying to think of the word for this. Oh yeah, gross is what that was. But you saw it coming over at a solid 5 to 10 minutes beforehand, because you called up the items. He had the Infinity Edge, he had the Collector. He had everything he needed to win the fight, and finally, Honey was basically allowed to, I'm not going to say free hit because they were on top of Honey, but Honey made it work, and finally able to take down CGA, who, I must say, CGA put up a hell of a fight, getting pick after pick, delaying the dragon. It was so good from them.
Oh my. I think we'll throw to a quick break a moment so we can get Temporal back in here and hear their thoughts on it, because there's a lot of things you can have thoughts on that game that I don't know if I'm entirely comfortable with. We'll be just a moment, everybody.
We're back. Welcome, LJLers. What a first game. We apparently flipped two heads because it was somewhat entertaining. There was a decent matchup there between CGA and Axiz. Congratulations to Axiz. They break their somewhat worrying form, and as normal, it was all the Honey show. Midnight in the early game, we saw a bit of a split of the map where, with some early skirmishing, Honey and friends got ahead, but CJA pushed through on the top side of the map.
Yeah, CJ basically said to Milan and Alchemy, look, good luck, have fun, and then just abandoned them for the early game. We saw Cassin posturing for dives, along with Nahum roaming up, and it was a very clear game plan, right? Like to the point where we saw Nahum abandoning his mid lane to run through the jungle to set up a dive on the tier 2 pre 20 minutes. Like that is a clear game plan coming in from Crest. And I don't dislike the idea. The concern is that if you don't make this play work, if this doesn't get Inno and Cassin ridiculously ahead, it does come across as a bit, well, you've stopped a gangplank, but it's a gangplank. Like he's still going to be able to land a barrel in a team fight unless you're really, really coordinated. So the fact that it was just kind of more to put Inno down as opposed to get Nap and Cassin ahead, I like the idea, but the execution had a little bit to be desired.
Maybe unsuccessfully taking a leaf from DFM's book yesterday, where they look to do the same thing to this utility Cassidin that's come back again. Melvin, do you have strong feelings about the utility gangplank?
You know what? I definitely have feelings. I'm very conflicted as a person right now because I was coming in today hoping that Axis would have a resurgence, and I feel like Honey had a resurgence, but Nemo was also there. I mean, you can't have a Phelios without Thresh. You can't deny them credit. They didn't have their best Thresh game ever, but frankly, their best Thresh game ever is disgusting, so hitting a solid middle ground is fine. But frankly, I feel like Hogler is the person we have to look at this game and go, all right, Midnight, you were warning us that you didn't want to see them on the Lee Sin again, and this was a player that we ended up putting as one of our top players in the league for our mid-split tier list that we did. And I don't know what happened to him in the 2 weeks off, because they just haven't looked the same. This Lee Sin, yeah, they got one good Dragon steal, but outside that, they were just all over the place. All you needed to do this game, as we saw, was stand in front of Honey and eat some damage. And if you allow Honey to get into any single person on CGA, he kills them immediately. But it just took 30-something minutes for Axiz to realize, hey guys, let's just stand in front of Honey. And even then, it was CGA throwing the game instead.
For sure. We saw a couple of clutch kills there. The Aphelios, as you mentioned, doing true damage even to most of the tanks. Only the Anathema's chains coming out from Dr. Mundo to even slow it down. And that was just so scary sort of to look at. I've heard something from production. I'm not exactly.
We got a clip. That was the clip.
It is so special to see sort of the Aphelios get his 200 years set up. He just wants everyone to be short range, but not quite dealing damage, and he just wants to unload that ridiculous amount of damage we know this champion can do. And I'm going to be excited if we see more of Axiz's Honey on this Aphelios, as that was a real special show. So I'm shamelessly going to read my notes because I'm still very, very tired through my own fault. We saw a Leona pickup here from CGA. This is something we see not executed properly at tier 1, but in this game, a bit of a menace towards Axiz's Thresh, one of their better champions. Midnight, were you impressed with the way that every now and again, Nemo was just caught out?
I was, but I feel like it wasn't just the Leona. It was something that I hate to give credit to, but I have no choice. Lulu in the middle lane with that stupid item that I'm not even going to give it the time of day to say its damn name. Um, being able to basically run down the threat. It's basically like having a Sivir on your team at that point. You basically are trading a mid laner for a Sivir ultimate, is what you've done with the Lulu. But they made it work because they had the Leona. They had a way to start the fight after they start sprinting Mark 5 at the Thresh. So it worked, and it worked because of the Lulu's Shirelias, but I'm still not sold on Leona into Thresh just as a general concept because you can't really do much in lane. You have to roam, and against an Aphelios, you're not meant to roam because you have to kill the Aphelios to stop him from scaling.
The main problem I had with it here is the Aphelios has to be your target, otherwise your whole team will die. But the Leona pick in this dynamic is meant to, as we saw on mid, solar flare the Thresh, and then Thresh suddenly, in his forward up positioning, really struggles, and it all gets a bit scary, a bit fast for our Threshy friend. Melvin, we saw both teams play a pretty good game by their standards. Are you worried about the impending pinch at the bottom of the table for CGA or Axiz?
I think that Axis are starting to falter a little bit because I would say you could maybe argue that the gangplank still counts as experimenting. But right now, the one experiment that I think we can all conclude as failed is Hoglet's Lee Sin at the very moment needs to be refined. There needs to either be something changed that sets it up better, or like the standard Nidalee Renekton dynamic, they need point and click volley bears in lane or something like that, because it was not all that. They got a good Dragon Steel, and that was about their biggest impact in the game, which is really disappointing for me because I think when Hoglet is enabled, when they were playing that Viego, they were absolutely disgusting. They were so good for the team, and I think it's something that if they can go into the next game and the next week, even the final week of the split, and find something else that they can play, they're in a great spot. CGA, we're going to watch them play against DFM next, and I feel like that's all I can do to prime it, because yesterday CGA did the same thing to me, where they had a great position, they had a good comp, they were ahead, and then they inted it, and then they won the second game when they had absolutely no right to. So if I'm DFM, I'm shaking in my boots right now.
I feel like Melvin Niddle's been hurt temporarily. I'm going to be honest. It feels like someone has gotten a knife and just jammed it in there real deep, because this is sounding like betrayal to an aggressive degree.
Indeed. Right, before we talk more about CGA versus DFM second game of the day, I'm going to give you both some power right now. We're going to warp back time, because that's what my nickname does allude to. We're just going to rewind a little bit. We're back in draft. We've got CGA on the blue side, Axiz on the red side. Your jungle's coming through at the end of the first rotation, gentlemen. But you are now Axiz's on-stage coach, and you've both said you really don't want to pick Lee Sin. Take a moment to think as I somewhat delay to allow your brains to pick through. You must take a jungler to allow for your second rotation to favor the mid lane. What do you pick?
Do you recall what they had up until that point for both teams? Because they were red
There
side.
was a Thresh on red 1.
I believe they locked in the Thresh affiliate.
Thanks. Yeah,
as we cut back, thank you, Clean Feed. A blue one Jin's out, followed up with a so I'm completely wrong. It's on R4. So we've had our first rotation. You're playing Thresh Aphelios. You have an assassin in the mid lane. Your opponent has given away their Lulu flex to some degree, but they have admitted it's going to be a Lulu Xin Zhao core of the map. What do you pick on R4 here? You've banned away some AD carries from your opponent, so you will have access on a wide range of junglers.
Oh,
I'm thrown here because part of me, I'm also going to kind of look at what Hoglet's known champion pool is, because I feel like that's a fairer way to look at this sort of thing. Because otherwise you're going to say something like, "Oh, just look at Steel's Shaco, easy." Like, no, you can't say that.
You could, to a degree, you could say that's the next experiment. We're going back in time, so no matter what you do, it won't make sense.
I feel like for Hoglet here, you need something. I wouldn't want to say a Kindred. I'd say I know it's out of meta. I know it is completely not picked anymore, but I actually wouldn't have minded Udyr here. Like, I feel like Udyr provides the same sort of threat of the Lee Sin. You know, I can be aggressive early, I can be defensive, I can be relatively mobile, and it's just a pain in the ass to deal with and get through, which is the setup for Honey. Like, I feel like the Lee Sin just, yes, it's a bit more flexible, but Hoglet's clearly showing that he doesn't know what to do with that flexibility. Give him something a bit more static, like the Udyr, that isn't mechanically complicated, and tell him, here's your jungle pathing, here's the person you have to guard with your life, go.
So, a flexible Udyr for Midnight. It might struggle into CGA's rather developed frontline, but it buys Axiz time, and it can probably just play bodyguard for Aphelios. So there is an angle there, even if it can't move through the treacle of Lulu as we continue to talk about walking through pudding on the LJL day after day. Melvin, I think I've seen you come to your conclusion.
So I realized that the answer was staring at me in the face. This is an Ivan angle right here.
Oh, yeah.
This is a nutty Ivan angle right now. You have got a LeBlanc and an Aphelios, two champions who love to have Ivan, because you get the immediate follow-up on any root caller. You keep your team alive. You go Moonstone. You absolutely laugh in the enemy face. The only issue is with the fact that you then can't go the Gangplank, but obviously if we're looking at this in the theoretical sense, you would pick some kind of dog tank for the top lane at that point and just condemn Inno to that terrible world. But I think if you pick Ivan here with a dog tank like the enemy had the Mundo, even an Ornn actually, you've kind of just stomped draft at that point, because you can't lose early because you have LeBlanc de Rome decides to match whatever they do. You have the Aphelios Thresh bot lane. Xin Zhao can look to invade Ivan, but you can path around it pretty handedly, be able to go for the control ward early on if needed to try and spot that out. And again, a little bit of bias here, but I'm pretty sure that that game would have been a lot more decisive if Axiz did that, and obviously assuming Hoglet can play it.
Oh, we're allowed assumptions. You can justify this any way you like, because I've put you all on the spot. So Melvin, again, we're going to break away from the LJL. Previous Ivan, terror of the United Kingdom university scene, I believe, and definitely gave his opponents some nightmares. So Melvin's chosen to save the trees, and would prefer a supportive jungler to further push Honey to the forefront of this Axiz team. Maybe paired with a Tom Kench or something on this patch in the top lane. We're going to ignore all the bans. We're just talking about what may or may not have happened in a potential future or past. I think I would have probably gone for a Diana jungle to allow a staging ground for the Aphelios. Don't get me wrong, it's something I just love on this patch, and it wouldn't be without its own issues. While it does favor its matchup into the Xin Zhao, it can fall short, especially of that Lulu mid lane. Gentlemen, we've gone through that game. We're going to look to DFM versus CJ production. Do we want a break, or do we just go straight through? The Magic Man in the Sky, are you there? We're going to go to a quick break while we prepare for that upcoming matchup. It's do or die for CGA as they face off an on form and looking to reclaim former glory DFM.